This goes without saying, but there will be spoilers for both seasons of Invincible being discussed. You have been warned. Hey, how's it going everybody? I hope you're all good. My name is Peter Gargan, and I'm happy to welcome you all back for another video covering the world of Invincible. This time, I'll be going over some of my favourite moments in Season 2 that I felt I couldn't quite expand into full videos, but still thought were worth talking about. So, without further ado, let's just get straight into it. To start this video off, I think it would make sense to go back to the beginning, in the form of the first episode's opening sequence. This depicts an alternate dimension where Mark actually joins Nolan's side in taking over Earth for Viltrumite rule. But the way this is built up is done really cleverly to keep our expectations in check. Mark's exchange of fists against the Immortal initially appears to be the pair undergoing a training session, only for Nolan to swoop in to, if you pardon the pun, literally disarm Immortal, allowing Mark to crush his head and finish him off. A public service announcement in a destroyed city also depicts Mark requesting the people of Earth to submit, or the situation will only escalate with further destruction. Immediately, we are left with several questions. Is this set in the distant future? Why would Mark side with Nolan after he fought so hard in the previous season to save Earth? What would have caused him to turn his back on humanity? In the same sequence, we later see Mark and Nolan infiltrate an underground resistance led by Angstrom Levy, where Mark paralyzes a variant of Eve and robots get straight up murdered by Nolan, who delivers the coldest line in response to the reminder that his longevity as a Viltrumite will eventually catch up to him. Once Angstrom is threatened and escapes through a portal, everything clicks, and we soon realise that this is just an alternate dimension as we cut back to the Mark we're all familiar with trying to continue his duties as a superhero, only with a melancholic tone as a result of where the first season ended. It serves as a nice contrast because despite the evil variants we see at the start, we can recognise that our Mark is still trying his best to make everyone's lives better through smaller scale acts of kindness, like delivering an ambulance truck faster. With a slight sense of dread due to the looming concern that he could eventually end up like Nolan, as demonstrated by his own insecurities that we see throughout the season. Season 2 also delves into the effects that Season 1's events are having on Mark's mother Debbie, and as bleak as a lot of her moments are, it's also a powerful exploration on how a normal human tries to deal with a not-so-normal life when surrounded by superpowered beings, especially when that life falls apart. Even when she is given a chance to express her grief at the specialised counselling group dedicated to the loved ones of superheroes, she finds herself alone once more after one of the attendees is revealed to be the spouse of one of Omni-Man's murder victims, who unfairly blames Debbie despite her also being in the dark about Nolan's true goals at the time. And sure, grief can blind a person's judgment, but goddammit, Debbie just can't catch a break because it's still not her fault either way. It's only when Mark brings Oliver back to Earth after his visit to Thraxa that Debbie gains a newfound purpose in raising Nolan's new son. As grey as the situation might be, especially considering the way Nolan treated her and had a child with another woman after abandoning her, Debbie still decides to raise Oliver as her own, and in its own way, helps her on the path of healing, as she has a chance to let Oliver grow and develop into a compassionate being with values of humanity, much like what she's already accomplished with Mark, while also not being so lonely anymore. So here's hoping that we will see this develop further into Season 3. Next up, we have the character growth of Rexplode. He started off in Season 1 as a bit of an unlikable jerk, who makes constant wisecracks at every opportunity and even cheats on Eve. As understandable as it is to hate him, I believe that was kind of the point, and Season 2 proved me right that we would eventually see a more sympathetic side to him. It's just basic character writing to make someone unlikable at first, so that we get to see them grow and mature. This happens in the form of when Rex, Kate and Ray are left on Earth to fight the Lizard League while the other Guardians tackle the Sequid threat on Mars. The Lizard League have been treated as joke villains throughout the series, but this time round, they're actually a force to be reckoned with. After they supposedly kill Kate and Ray, Rex is left to fend for himself, killing Komodo Dragon in exchange for his hand being bitten off, but left at gunpoint by King Lizard, who has been cowardly waiting for his perfect opportunity to strike. However, a bullet to the head isn't enough to put Rex down completely, and he somehow musters the strength to get back up and beat King Lizard senselessly, in a move of defiance that I think is safe to say won the majority of fans over, despite their previous opinions of Rex as a character. His time in hospital allows him to reflect on the way he has treated Eve and Kate, and why he is the way he is, and the whole ordeal ends up being a very humbling experience for him. And he starts to become a lot friendlier towards Mark by the time they team up to take on Octoboss. I think Rex's arc in this season was another great example of a character that seemed like an obnoxious asshole on the surface, winning people over after demonstrating he has that dog in him that is willing to keep on fighting until the very end. A character that I wasn't expecting to be so invested in this season was Donald Ferguson, Cecil's right-hand man who has devoted his loyalty to the GDA until the very end, after being presumably killed by Nolan in the penultimate episode of Season 1. However, by the time Season 2 begins, he seems very alive and well, despite the last we saw of him was him having his spine crushed and being engulfed in a house explosion. It is later revealed that his body has been put back together as an android with his memories wiped, and not only that, this has happened several times on countless other missions he's been involved with. Understandably enraged about not being told, Donald confronts Cecil, who assures him that it was necessary to put him back together as a result of his devotion to protecting Earth, and that Donald was actually the one who voluntarily consented to having his memories wiped to avoid the trauma attached. This changes, however, when Donald encounters William's boyfriend Rick, who was turned into a reaniman robot by the dastardly D.A. Sinclair. At this point, Rick has also received similar treatment to Donald in terms of regaining his human exterior, but is still haunted by the memory of Sinclair, and questions whether he is even human anymore, which causes Donald to intervene and prevent him from taking his own life. Donald draws from his own experiences and tells Rick that what truly makes both of them human is their desire to make the world a better place, and that no amount of internal machinery can change that, reminding Rick that he fought back against the other reaniman to protect Mark and William. This was a surprisingly powerful scene that made me care about two characters that I didn't have all that much interest in previously, and is an example of heroism within the series that doesn't straight up involve high spectacle action sequences between superpowered beings, eventually resulting in Donald embracing his own past in the process and making peace with the horrific implications behind his continuous revivals. And to think, I initially dismissed Donald as a side character and came out finding his arc one of the most compelling we've seen so far, which is yet another testament to how much this show continues to surprise me and subvert my expectations. Episode 3 gives us a further glimpse on the more interstellar aspects of the Invincible universe, and steps away from Earth to catch up with the fan favourite Alan the Alien, who is on his way to report Nolan's departure of Earth and inform the coalition of planets of Mark's allegiance to the cause of putting an end to the Viltrum Empire's tyranny. Alan's backstory is also explored, being the only successful result of a Unopan breeding camp designed to match Viltrumite in strength, and while Alan didn't quite reach that level, he's still powerful enough to be sent on scouting missions to assess whether each planet has a worthy defender in the event of planetary threats. I really like how we are essentially immersed in a completely different corner of this universe to explore what's going on elsewhere, while Mark has his own struggles to deal with. Seeing different alien species and how Alan's discovery on Earth causes room for debate amongst the Coalition. We are also introduced to other Viltrumites beyond Nolan's narration in the Season 1 finale, being exposed to their ruthless nature as they beat Alan to near death, giving us an insight on the looming threat that Mark and the people of Earth will eventually have to come up against, as well as being an emotional gut punch as we are initially led to believe that Alan is done for. One of the most well-known gags in the comic that the show is an adaptation of was Mark meeting a comic book writer at a signing, where he admits to reusing the same panel to create the illusion of a pause between dialogue in a self-aware joke that pokes fun at cutting corners to keep to a schedule. This joke is brought back in the show, but due to now being part of the animation medium, it gets adapted accordingly in what I think is a genius way of translating the same joke in a new context. I also found it low-key educational, as someone who is interested in learning animation at some point, when it comes to tactics used to save time and budget in subtle ways. As much as waiting for new episodes can feel frustrating, this self-aware joke made me more forgiving to the hard work that went into it, as I think it was done in a way that doesn't insult the audience, and it communicates to me that the people working on the show were, hopefully, enjoying the process by poking fun at themselves, which can only be a good thing, as I felt it never really detracted from the story at hand, and was just a quirky, insightful way of deconstructing animation as a medium. Last, but most certainly not least, I figured I'd save the season finale for last. Angstrom Levy, introduced in the first episode of Season 2, has been plotting his revenge against Mark throughout, after blaming him for his disfigurement from his memory transplant experiment goes horribly wrong. On top of being haunted by the memories of his multiversal variants that have suffered at the hands of Mark's countless evil counterparts, Angstrom decides to attack Mark on a personal level, threatening the lives of Debbie and Oliver. After sending Mark through several dimensions with the intent of weakening him, Mark eventually snaps after seeing Debbie injured and finally unloads the power he's been holding back. It comes full circle after refusing to kill the Viltrumites that attacked him and Nolan during his time on Thraxa, where, on this occasion, he's out for blood, and understandably so. After Angstrom pushes him to his limit and is presumed to have been killed, Mark is left stranded in a dimension with no way back home. And here we get a monologue where he grapples with the guilt of breaking his principles, while also trying to rationalise why it was necessary due to protecting his family, with the line, "I thought you were stronger," having a double meaning, in which he is referring to both Angstrom for perceiving his physical strength to be on his level, while also talking about his own restraint. And while the Guardians from the future allow him to return home, Mark is left angry at himself as he believes that he became the very person whose footsteps he had tried so hard to avoid following before this point. Season 2 ends on yet another somber note for Mark, and it's possible that Season 3 will continue to put him through difficult situations that may result in him having to compromise his own values even further, as we explore more grey areas of heroism and whether he's ultimately making the right decisions going forward. Anyway, that just about does it for this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. What were your favourite moments in Season 2? Let me know in the comments. Be sure to stick around for future content on the topics surrounding the world of Invincible or other entertainment. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, see you later.